We go on to the agenda, and so we'll give you a project status update. We're going to talk through some key differences with the old platform and the new platform. We will talk through the process timing. So, you know, how does this look in a sort of weekly or fortnightly settlement schedule? So we'll just go through that with you. Talk through registering on the platform for those that you haven't registered on it yet. And I know a number of you on this webinar have registered, but we will go through this briefly. And then I think we're going to go through what the weekly tasks are. So what do you need to do week to week on the platform, which I think is a key thing that we want to get through to you today. And of course, as I said, any questions and answers at the end of this session. So from a project update perspective, hopefully everybody received an update yesterday. We had a go live date of end of this week. But we have pushed that out to the end of this month, the 30th of September. That's really just to give everybody enough time to get onto the platform and register. And we're also dealing with the old system, which has, you know, been out there for I think 15 or 20 years. The data is very old. And so, you know, we're just getting through that data and making sure we've got everybody included that needs to be included and get an invite to the platform. So some people may not have received an invite yet as we step through that data, but we will get to you. However, if you haven't received an invite, please do reach out to us. We'd love to know, and we'll get an invite to you as soon as possible. To reach out to us, you can reach out to ABTA, or you can reach us at support@travelledger.org. And then we'll follow up with you. So far we've had 4 companies live on a pilot for 6 weeks, and we're approaching £1 million in transactions a week. So the platform has been very stable. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and we're all very happy with the way it's working so far. So that's very encouraging for us. And obviously, you know, once we are ready to go live on the 30th of September, I think we're in a good place to then transact with everybody. So I think that's the key things from me. I'm now going to hand over to Michaela, who's going to talk through some of the key differences on the platform.
Hello, everybody. So to start with, I'm going to talk you through the key differences between SPS and the Travel Ledger platform. So in the Travel Ledger platform, it's important to note that we do have a mandatory review. So what that means is that as buyers in the platform, you're going to need to go into Travel Ledger and you need to either accept, amend or reject all your bookings. So I know previously you haven't necessarily had to accept bookings and they would still be debited, whereas in Travel Ledger it is a requirement that you do go in and you accept any bookings. If you don't accept bookings, then they won't be collected and they will be voided, and if that's in error, then you would need to go to the seller and ask them to reload them for you. So it is important that you do go in and you review in that buyer review window. In the Travel Ledger platform as well, we do have automated refunds. So what does this mean? It means refunds are going to be calculated and netted with each seller like they are today. But what's different is that if a buyer is an overall credit, so a buyer is actually owed money by a seller because the refund amount equates to more than the bookings for the week, say. The buyer is actually refunded when the disbursement takes place the following week. So that will make more sense when I go through a process timing slide next with you. But it is just to ensure that all funds are clear before any refunds take place. I have also recently finished a video on refunds specifically, which will be added to YouTube shortly. We do have a YouTube channel, which I'll share with you afterwards, but you will be able to view a refunds video on there. So process timing. So what does the process look like in Travel Ledger from end to end? So firstly, your sellers will be uploading files between Thursday and until Friday, Thursday to Friday until Monday. So the last time a seller can upload any files to you is at 9:59 in the morning on a Monday. Buyers can then go in and review. So a buyer can go and review the bookings that a seller has sent to them between 10 a.m. on a Monday and 15:59 on a Wednesday. So after 15:59 on the Wednesday, all review closes. So the settlement day then commences at 1600, so at 4 p.m. And that is therefore collection day, with direct debit submitted to BACS at 1700, so at 5 o'clock. So that means any funds are collected from the buyer on that Wednesday, late afternoon, early evening. Direct debit collection is executed in finality on the Friday, and then the funds are cleared on the following Wednesday at around 11 in the morning. Wednesday is also our disbursement day, so those funds will then be dispersed to the creditors at 1 o'clock on that Wednesday, and then those funds will be received by the creditors by Friday morning. So let's have a look at the platform in action. So as Simon mentioned before, some of you have already registered. So for those of you who have, that's great. For those of you that haven't, I think it's about 50-50 on this call. We're just going to run through the registration process with you briefly to make sure you're all comfortable and happy with that and can get set up and going on the platform as soon as possible. So firstly, we'll look at email. So the email for registration that you'll receive, and I'll just go through some information on forwarding that with you. Completing the registration process, setting up two-factor authentication, which two-factor authentication is an additional security measure that we have in the platform. What it does is it just verifies that you are who you say you are, by asking you to input a code from a device that is registered as belonging to you. With the platform being so financially oriented, we believe it's an important step to take and that you will need to take at every login. So I'll go through how you can set that up and easily use it every time you log in. Next, we'll look then at adding new users. So the person who registers for the platform on the platform for the first time will be the person responsible for accepting our terms and conditions. However, we do appreciate that that person may well not be the person who is looking after bookings on a day-to-day basis in the platform. So we will show you how to add new users so that that responsibility can then become shared across yourself and your colleagues. Okay. Lastly, I have already made a YouTube video that is specific to registration. So if after this call you need to review that or you have any questions, and please do take a look at that video and then just let us know if you've got any further questions beyond that. So let's take a look at a registration email that I've already set up so I can demonstrate it to you. So you can see here, there's an email in my inbox from Travel Ledger. It's inviting me to join the platform. So I'm able to click on a link here to do so. Before I go through that registration process with you, I mentioned email forwarding in the agenda for the registration. If you do receive this registration email from us and you are not the person responsible for accepting terms and conditions, and you want somebody else within your company to do that for you, you're absolutely fine to take this email and forward it to that person. So once you forward it to that person, that link will still work for them. They can click on Create Company Profile, which I'll do now. And that will take us to this registration page here. So you can see here that there is pre-configured information, some of that being an email and name. So if you do forward it on to somebody else within your company, just make sure that they update these details to their own, because they will be pre-populated to be your details. So whoever's received that email initially, their details will be in here. So you can see the company name is already completed, and then underneath we have a company ID field. Now for all of you, this will already be completed because ABTA is setting this up for you. It's only because I'm doing this as an example, it's incomplete. But if for any reason there's any error or it needs amending, then you can also do that. So if I click on Add Company ID, I can put my own company ID in here. And then I will need to put in my company address. And I can put in my city and also the country. Also need to set a password, and the system will let you know when your password is secure enough, as you can see there. And you'll also have some terms and conditions to agree to. If I select the box here, then you'll see the terms and conditions pop up. The terms and conditions in your invite and registration form will obviously be more extensive than these. These are just a test environment set. So once you've reviewed the full terms and conditions that you see, then you click on I accept. And we are then okay to select register. Okay, so once we are registered, then we can go ahead and start to log in for this first time. Just check I've got that demo email address right. Yep. Put the email address that your account was set up with and the password that you've just set, and click on login. I must have already logged in. Let me just log out and I'll do that again. Okay.
You might have an extra E in your email address. Not sure if that's correct. Next after Miller.
No, yes, it's a middle initial. It's okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so the first time you log in is when we'll complete the two-factor authentication, as I mentioned before. So on the page, there are some instructions provided for you. So it just advises that two-factor authentication is required, and please follow the instructions to activate it. So you can see we've got a QR code here, and the instructions are advising us to scan this QR code with a authenticator app, such as Google Authenticator, if you have a smartphone, or if you want to do it on your desktop, so you don't have a smartphone, or you're not approved to use a smartphone for your work, then we can do it with a desktop version instead, which I'll show you now. And when you're doing the desktop version, then you also have a manual code here. So I'm going to open the desktop version, which is an app called Authy, works really well for this. So if I open up Authy here, which I'm already registered.
We can't see that yet.
Okay, bear with me, let me share again. You see my screen with Authy in front of it as well. Now I've got this little box here. Yeah. So this is Authy. When you register on Authy for the first time, it does require a verification. So when you first set it up, it will ask you for a phone number. Please bear in mind, so I have had this question before, that doesn't need to be a smartphone or a mobile phone. You don't need to use a personal phone to do it. You can use a work phone, so a landline works perfectly well to authenticate and set up Authy the first time. Simply put in a landline number if you don't want to use a mobile, and instead of using the SMS verification method, you can get like an automated call and a code to put in that way. So really simple to do and works really well with a landline. So if you've got any company policies around having to use company equipment at all times, then that works really well. So I'm in Authy, I'm logged in, and I want to add my travel ledger setup to my authenticator. So there's a plus button here. I can click on that and add account. So if I want to add account, it says enter code given by the website. So we have this code here that I can then input into Authy. And then once that code's in there, I simply click on add account, and I have to choose a color for it. So I'm going to have a purple one, and I need to give it a name as well. So I'm going to call it Travel Ledger Demo, and I'm going to save it. It says down at the bottom, there's a question about token length. ours is 6 digits, so there's no changes for you to make there. That's absolutely fine. So just simply put in a nickname for your account, whatever you prefer, so you can easily remember that it's linked to your travel ledger. Choose a color and then save. Okay, so as you can see here, it's now displaying a 6-digit code to me. And on the travel ledger screen at step 2, you can see it's requesting that you input a 2-factor authentication code. It'll ask you for a two-factor authentication code at every login that you then make. But initially it's just underneath here. It'll be a simpler screen at every other login. So what we do is we take this code and we input it here. Now you'll see my code's just changed, and that's because it changes every 30 seconds. So what you can do is you just copy here and then paste it in here and then confirm. And I'm now logged into the platform. So as I mentioned, that does change every 30 seconds. So it's important just to make sure that you only copy and paste the code in when you're ready to do so, because if you leave it for a little while, the code will update. So it updates every 30 seconds. So just make sure you're fairly swift in copying and pasting. And that's that. That's you set up and logged into the Travel Ledger platform for the first time. Now we're logged in, and I've accepted the terms and conditions and set up the account, but I'm not an everyday user. So I want to add some other people from my company into the platform to support me with managing our transactions. So what I need to do is I need to go up to the top left-hand corner, open up the menu and go down to settings. And when I go down to settings, there's a box called companies and users, and I can click on that and it brings me to the page where I manage all my company and the associated users with that. So you can see here, my company is Durham Leisure Travel, and all the details that we set up as part of registration are there. And then also underneath, we've got the option to manage users. You can see I'm there as a user with the email address and details that I have just set up. But if I want to add any of my colleagues on this sort of beigey line here where we say manage users, there's a little plus sign, which also means add user. So we click on that and it then says I can invite a user to Durham Leisure Travel. So if I wanted to invite Simon, I could put in his name and then I will put in an email address for Simon. And then the last thing I need to do is assign a user type. So there's 2 different user types in the platform. There's a normal user and there's an admin user. An admin user has access to all these different settings and configure things around the company and the users, so they can add new users and they can just manage the company details as well. Whereas a normal user is just really focused on the day-to-day management of transactions and looking at that area of the platform. An admin user can do that too, but just the normal user is a bit more restricted. I would suggest that you probably have 2 admin users within your company. The reason I say that is you can reset your 2-factor authentication within the platform. So if you lost your mobile phone and needed to set that up again, you didn't have your QR codes and you didn't have your 6-digit code coming up anymore, something went wrong with your phone, an admin could actually reset that for you. And if you only have 1 admin, then you would need to come to us to do that on your behalf. So by having another admin just allows you to support each other with user management. And yeah, again, if you need to add any new users while somebody else is on holiday or disable somebody if they leave the business, and it's good to have 2 people there to manage that. So I'm going to set Simon up as an admin in this instance. So I've completed the form and I now click on save. And Simon is now received an invite. So if I log in back into my emails, then it would come through to here. It might be a bit slow and have not come straight through. Here we go, yeah. Yeah, so dear Simon Blythe, an administrator for Durham Leisure Travel has sent you this invite. So Simon can then go in and activate his account So he would be able to also support on the Travel Ledger platform. So that's it. That's registration for you in a nutshell. So next, I'm going to look at your actual day-to-day use of the platform. So we've covered registration, emails and forwarding, completing registration, setting up two-factor authentication and adding new users. As I say, if you go to YouTube and search for Travel Ledger, you'll find our YouTube channel, and there's already a whole video in there of registration, which covers everything that I've just been through with you today. So weekly tasks and using the platform in general. So what do I mean by that? So as a buyer, you'll need to go in during that buyer review period between Monday and Wednesday and review your bookings. As I mentioned before, accepting bookings is something that you do need to do in Travel Ledger to ensure that those bookings are then collected. If you don't do that, then they won't be collected. So you can go in and accept bookings, you can amend bookings, or you can reject bookings. So I'm going to go back into the platform now, and I'm going to log in with a slightly different user login because I've already prepared some transactions for us to look at. So I'm going to log in as test buyer, so buyer@travelledger.com, put in my password, and then I'm going to log in. So you'll see here that I now need to enter a two-factor authentication code. So for this one, I have it set up on my phone. So I just go into my Google Authenticator, find the code for this specific account, and enter it into the platform, click on confirm, and I'm logged in. So that's how simple the two-factor authenticator is. Once you're set up, you've just got to quickly enter that code, click enter, and you're in. So if I am a buyer and I'm coming into the platform to review my bookings, the place that I need to be is in the main menu, and it's transactions. Transactions is probably where you'll spend most of your time as a buyer.
Just a quick point on the dashboard that's being displayed, that's under construction, so you may not see that.
You see it on your side at the moment.
Login of the next few weeks, but this dashboard will be made available hopefully by the end of the month, and it'll have quite a bit more on it as well.
Yeah. So at the moment, your landing page anyway will be transactions. As Simon mentioned, the dashboard is coming your way. At the moment, when you log in, though, you will land on transactions naturally, but it is in the main menu, transactions. So in the transactions area, we've got three main pages or tabs. We've got bookings, remittances, and import file. So as I say, as a buyer, we'll spend a lot of time in bookings. And underneath, there's two little radio buttons, one for sent and one for received. Buyers will use received because it displays bookings that they've received from sellers. Sellers will use sent as it will display bookings that they have sent to their buyers. It's good to have the button there, though, because I know some companies act as both buyers and sellers, so you can easily toggle between transactions that you've sent and transactions that you've received. So I'm going to leave it on received here because we're looking at the seller process. So we're on received, and you can see underneath I've got a list of bookings that are awaiting my review. So let's have a look at the setup of these. So you can see here we've got the seller name, the seller ID type, and the seller ID. We've got details of the actual booking, so the booking and the lead name on the booking. We've then got the settlement status. So the settlement status, the filter is defaulted to due. What due does is it displays all bookings that are have been added by a seller and haven't yet been reviewed by the buyer, and they're either for the next collection or any future collections. So you can then see next door we have the associated collection date, which is an estimated date based on the setup. And then we've also got the expected payment date as well. So we've then got another couple of columns that are really useful to you. We've got the original amount and the current amount. So the original amount displays that the amount of the transaction that the seller has sent to you. You see at the top, we've got a running total of the amounts. And then underneath, we've got the individual amounts per booking. And then we've got the current amount next to that. So that displays the amount that the buyer has accepted or rejected, which I'll go through with you shortly. We've also got the transaction status. So the transaction status shows whether bookings are amended, rejected, or accepted, and any blank have not been assigned anything as of yet. Lastly, the last thing I'll point out here is the reason code. So the reason code just applies to anything that's been amended or rejected. So you do have a mandatory reason code to input there in those cases. So let's firstly have a look at accepting bookings. If you wanted to accept a booking, then you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can do that in bulk by selecting multiple items here and clicking on accept selected. Or alternatively, you can use the little button up here to select all, so everything that's on your page, and click on accept selected. You will see at the bottom with bulk bookings that you've got a rows per page. Rows per page goes up to 500. So if you've got a large amount of bookings, you can view a maximum of 500 per page. So say you have 2,000 bookings and you can see 500 per page, that gives you 4 pages of bookings. What you would need to do to accept them in bulk would be to select all on the first page, accept selected, and just go through the 4 pages and accept them all in bulk that way. So what it does here is it updates based on the page, so what's in view to you. Alternatively, if you wanted to update bookings on an individual basis, you can do that by selecting here and accept selected, or you can go across to the transaction status and update that manually. So I can click here on accepted, and this booking here, this refund of £89, I have now accepted. If you do have a large amount of bookings and you want to search for something in particular, then you can do that as well. So I could go here and I could look for anything related to Traveller Daisy, and it would filter accordingly. So you've got lots of filters across all these areas here. Okay, so let's have a look at amending and rejecting bookings as well. So if I decided this booking here for £110, I actually wanted to reject that booking, I can reject that by going to, again, transaction status and clicking on rejected. Now with rejection and amendment, you can't do that in bulk. So you can only do that on a booking by booking basis. So you need to come across the transaction status to complete that. So I want to reject this booking here, and I want to say I'm rejecting it because it's already been paid. So B there. And you'll see that the current amount has gone down to 0 and the running total here has reduced. Likewise, if I wanted to amend a booking, so this booking here for 884 and 90 pence, I'm going to amend that booking. So I'm going to change the amount here because I've already paid a deposit of £100 on this booking. I'm going to reduce that amount to 784 and 90 pence. I then need to add, it then updates to amended here, and then I need to add a reason code here to say that it is a part payment because I've already paid some of it. And again, that then updates, so your current amount is reduced and your running total at the top changes as well. It's important to note that during the buyer review period, you can change the status of your booking as many times as you wanted to. So if I change my mind and I wanted to accept all these bookings, I could update that and just select accepted, and they would all then update to accepted, because I can change that, as I say, as many times as I like during that buyer review period. So that's handy to know that you can do that and you can change it. And then if I did need to go in again and reject anything, I could change my mind here and say, actually, this one's rejected because I've already paid it. So that's quite a nice way to manage your bookings, especially if you're dealing with a lot of them, is to accept them all and then just manage the exceptions by going through the list and just changing any rejected or amended ones accordingly. If you do need to see your data outside of the platform, we do have exports that you can make from this view as well. So if you wanted to export either all or some of your bookings, then you can do. So I've got bookings from various sellers here. So let's say I only want to export bookings that I've been sent by Michaela Durham's Travel. If I put a filter on here for Michaela Durham's Travel, I'll start to type that, it'll filter automatically. I could actually export these bookings then. So I can click on export, export all data. And you should see now, I've got a spreadsheet that's been generated, and it's got all those bookings from Michaela Durham's Travel exported for me. So if I need to use that anywhere else and load it into one of my back office, mid office systems, and I can do that as well. If you need to see any remittances that you've sent as well, you can actually go into this area here and see any remittances. As a buyer, you're likely to have sent remittances. So if you click on remittance and send, you can see remittance advice here. So you can see the amount that was paid, who it was paid to, and the date. And then you can use this little arrow here to expand the information and see who you've sent, who those bookings were for. So you can see that on a booking by booking basis. So all the bookings that are associated with that remittance. You can then export remittances on a sort of granular basis and down to individual remittance in the detail as well. So that's all doable within this remittance tab. Okay. So that was what I wanted to show you in the platform. So we've looked at reviewing bookings, and that's accepting, amending, and rejecting bookings. And then just in terms of support, so what support that we have in place for you. As I mentioned before, I think several times, we've got a YouTube channel. If you search Travel Ledger, that will bring up our channel, and you can view all the previous webinars, which will also include this one that we've hosted during this launch period, and some handy help videos that are there. So there's going to be registrations already there, and refunds incoming as well. We've got a wiki. So the address for our wiki is help.travelledger.org. I'll also show you briefly where you can find that in the platform. And you can raise a support ticket, which is support@travelledger.org. So, you know, if you have questions and you can't find the answer within the wiki or within the YouTube videos, then do raise a support ticket by emailing us at this address. So just before I hand over to the Q&A, if you're in the platform here, come down to the bottom, you'll see help. Help then takes you to our wiki pages. So within the wiki, you can find loads of information on the platform. So how does Travel Ledger work? Information for buyers, so how to update booking statuses, reviewing remittance advice, exporting data. We've also got information on registering on the platform, which has the registration video on YouTube embedded into the page, so you can easily access that from our wiki. And under help and support as well, we've also got an FAQ section and a glossary of terms. So loads and loads of support in there. And lastly, as I mentioned before, still need help, just gives you a link to raising a support ticket, either by emailing us or raising that through our support platform there.